Hello all and welcome to our daily news show, The Big Story, where we talk about the hottest topics of today right in the heart of the newsroom. I'm Kimberly Jiao, coming to you live from the Straits Times, and we are streaming on Facebook and YouTube, so do leave us a like, comment or share it with your friends, as well as hit the bell to be told whenever we go live. I'll be joined by my colleagues from the newsroom later on to discuss the stories that got you talking today. Our first story, the online citizen website has employed foreigners, including Malaysians, to write what Home Affairs and Law Minister K. Shanmugam described on Wednesday as almost exclusively negative articles on social and political matters in Singapore. With us to talk about this is news editor ZAKIR HUSSAIN. Hello.
Hi.
So what are the main concerns here?
I think if I could take a step back a bit more, there's been a concern globally in recent years that foreigners and foreign countries have always sought to intervene in domestic matters elsewhere to try and influence the course of events. And you saw that in the 2016 US presidential election, right, where Donald Trump was elected on the back of really a number of outright lies and falsehoods, false websites, false social media accounts that basically put down the other candidates. In the Brexit referendum that same year, you saw lots of falsehoods being spread that immigrants, that if Britain were to stay in the EU, you'd see floods of immigrants coming in. Again, falsehoods, but spread. And I think they did affect how people voted. And there's a very real concern, with the elections coming in Singapore and so on, with tensions between the US and China, and even other neighbors seeking to sort of influence, how Singaporeans vote on certain issues. I think there's a real fear that foreigners can sort of, try and influence outcomes. And sometimes if in an election, if it's close to call, they could sway certain things.
Right. Speaking of the election, what is your personal take on this, considering that we might be nearing a general election soon?
I think this is why we might not see the election before this law sort of is tabled and passed in Parliament, right? And I think the minister did say that they are looking at sort of having a law to better govern how foreign entities, to better govern how domestic websites and social media accounts, are funded.
Right.
And currently, you don't have powers to step in or to intervene as effectively if, say, you have evidence that foreign funds or foreign agents are sort of are involved or seeking to direct certain events. I think in the case of the TOCs, I think it emerged in recent weeks that some of the articles on the site, right, including an article that's the subject of a lawsuit from the PM, was written by someone with a pseudonym. And that person, it emerged, was actually based in KL. It was a Malaysian author, freelancer. And at the same time, you sort of start to wonder, because a lot of the TOC pieces on some of these issues are quite inflammatory, and they seek to sort of drum up hatred against foreigners, tap on divisions over race or class or other issues. So it seems, on the surface, it's a little odd that you hire a foreigner to, to write inflammatory.
It's a little coincidental.
Yeah. And there are still unanswered questions, and I think the minister posed some of them. Who's behind it? What are the purpose? And I'm not sure TOC's answered them convincingly yet.
Right. Actually, speaking of, you mentioned funding. Actually, TOC's website's chief editor, Terry Shi, said in response that, there is no law against hiring foreigners, and, the website doesn't have foreign funding.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that? What do you think of that?
I think it's a welcome clarification, but I think there's still some questions that weren't answered, and I think my colleagues did put them to Terry. Why was there a need to get someone abroad to write these pieces? And why were they written under a pseudonym? Right? I think it was written by someone named Rubashini at Merge, and she used the pseudonym Chiara Xavier.
Right.
There were other instances in other sites. And I think the question is not so much that, it's not just about TOC. I think there are a number of other sites that have popped up. There are social media accounts as well, regular bloggers. The concern is if, there's precisely because there's no law against governing not so much who writes these pieces, because most mainstream media outlets, as the minister pointed out, also do have staff of both local and foreign.
Right.
It's the fact that someone with an agenda or someone who's backed by funding elsewhere, could even be someone offering to write for free, but they could be paid by someone else.
Right.
So these are questions that I think haven't been answered, and I think the law will probably try to sort of spell some of these out, and I think give the government's powers to step in and intervene and probably block some of these sites, if it comes to that, or put certain corrections up.
I see. Well, I think at this point we can't say. There are a lot of, as you said, a lot of unanswered questions, and the law is not yet in place.
Yeah, and I think you'll get more details in the coming weeks and months, possibly here.
Okay, so if you'd like to stay up to date with those updates that we're referring to, do stay tuned to our website, straitstimes.com. Thanks for sharing more with us, ZAKIR.
Thanks, Kimberly. Yeah.
Our second story, the early disposal scheme, where registered e-scooters that don't meet a fire safety standard can be disposed in exchange for $100, saw about 450 applications on its first day, said LTA on Monday, September 23rd. And with us to explain more about this is ST journalist Ting Wei. Hello.
Hi.
Would you tell us more about this scheme?
So this scheme was actually announced last week, and is the latest in a series of initiatives by LTA to address the fire issues surrounding PMDs. So what arises from this, what causes this fire risk? People have pointed to the lack of the UL 2272 certification. So this early disposal scheme is meant to get people to dispose of their non-certified devices earlier. So I think in an update last month in Parliament, the Transport Ministry said there are about 90,000 registered e-scooters in Singapore, and only 10% of them have the certification. So we are looking at 81,000 e-scooters that do not have this safety certification. It doesn't mean that they will all spontaneously burst into fire or anything, but still, I think it's a precautionary measure to get as many of them off and disposed as early as possible. So that's why this scheme came about.
I see. So how will one go about disposing their device through the scheme?
So for this, I think from Monday this week until end March next year, there will be a total of 180 disposal points set out around Singapore. So these are not permanent disposal points, so every day it changes, and will go to mostly heartland areas, and usually around 5 p.m, 9 p.m, during the time where people have knockoff, so they can go return their e-scooters afterwards. So for that, the riders are advised to check the LTA's websites for the details. Then after that, there's also a kind of a more permanent disposal site set up at LTA's same main office. So those who want to dispose can go there to throw the devices. So for those who dispose of non-certified devices before end November, right, they'll get a $100 incentive if they meet the criteria. So basically, they just have to apply online before going down to dispose the device, and then if they meet the necessary criteria, basically having a LTA registration mark, and another registration mark given by LTA, then you can get the $100 transferred into your bank subsequently. So even for those who have devices that are not registered, they can still dispose of the devices, and they can get it done for free, just that they will not get the incentive.
Right.
Because for these PMDs, it's not something you can just take and throw at your void deck or throw at the disposal area, because electrical device could be a fire risk also. So yeah, it needs to be properly disposed of.
I see. So I think this is something that we should talk about, the safety issues surrounding PMDs, maybe on public paths specifically.
So actually for this, the safety issue on public paths, I think it has been on the back burner for a bit, but just last weekend it came into the spotlight again because of this very unfortunate accident involving a 65-year-old cyclist. Her name is Madam Ong. So she was riding on a bicycle, and she collided with a e-scooter rider, and then after that she suffered very serious injuries. So she was in a coma from Saturday until yesterday, where she died in hospital. So it's very unfortunate, so deepest condolences to her family in this case. So I guess for this issue, what discussions it has sparked is that people are calling for more regulations or even a ban of the devices. And in some ways, a ban is out of the question, because the devices are being used widely now, and the government has plans for it in Singapore's future transport system. So this calls for a need to have more initiatives, again, more regulations to try to make it safer. So at the moment, it's not that the authorities haven't done a lot, but there's still a lot more to be done. So I guess we could be looking at maybe compulsory riding course being made. It's voluntary now, but we could look at it being made compulsory.
Right.
Or some form of licensing scheme, because for now, if you want to ride an e-scooter, basically you don't have to have a license, and if you want to register it, you just have to be above 16 years old. So
A little more regulations would help there.
yeah, and maybe also because I think at the end of the day, I think a device, like how you use it, depends on the user itself.
Very
So
true.
even if you give them, say, a very safe device, if the user chooses to speed or maybe use it in the wrong way, the device will still pose a danger. So I guess like maybe stronger penalties should be something that could be looked at, because I mean you have to have a bit of a deterrent effect to stop people from speeding, even
Right.
with all the rules in place and stuff.
I see. And you actually mentioned a couple of these in your opinion piece, right? So if you'd like to read Ting Wei's opinion piece, stay tuned to our website, straitstimes.com. It's already out, right? So look it up, and do stay safe out there. And if you have a PMD that is not up to code, you can still dispose of them for free until March 31st. Thanks for sharing more with us, Ting Wei.
Thanks, Kim.
And our third story, the weekend is nearing, and with it comes the ST Run, which is happening on Sunday. We look forward to seeing you guys, those of you who have signed up, and we're going to bring you some updates and information today with our ST Sports editor, Yulin. Hello.
Hi.
Hey, first of all, I think we should remind all the runners that have registered that today is the first day you can collect your race packs, right?
Yes.
What do they need to know?
Okay, so the first thing they need to know today is that it's happening now at Hall 1 of the OCBC Arena. Okay, and for today it goes on till 8 o'clock. Right, and the other thing I think they need to know is that while online sign-ups have closed, we are still accepting walk-in registrations, but these are for certain categories only, which is the men's 10 kilometers and 3.5 kilometers.
Okay.
Right.
I see. So, you know, if you're watching this right now and you're like, oh no, I haven't picked up my race pack, quickly go to the OCBC Arena.
Yes.
Correct? And if they happen to miss it today, what happens? What do they do?
Okay, so you can still go down tomorrow and on Saturday. For tomorrow, the hall is open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And for Saturday, which is the eve of the race, it's open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m.
I see. So come there, go there, my apologies, at those timings. And I think, Yulin, we have to talk about this. The haze has been a hot topic over the past few days, so let's address it. Are there any contingency plans for this?
Yes, we are a responsible race organizer. So when you definitely have to have a contingency plan for anything, whether it's rain or haze. So we have been monitoring the weather conditions very closely. So we're taking into consideration the PSI as well as the PM 2.5. And we've been also looking at what other related sports events have done. So for example, 2 weeks ago, there was the Yellow Ribbon Prison Run as well as the POSB Passion Kids Run. Now, their runs took place even though the PSI was in the unhealthy range.
Okay.
But that's because the organizers used the PM 2.5 as the primary indicator, right? And that was in the normal range that morning. So I also want to reassure people that while we will do our utmost to let the event proceed, even if the weather conditions are less than ideal, our top priority really is the health and safety of our runners, our sponsors, our partners and our volunteers. And we have a lot of volunteers.
Right.
Yeah.
So the priority is to keep them safe.
Yes, keep them safe and keep them healthy.
I see. But we have no control over the weather conditions, of course. So if things were to change over the course of the day, what can our participants do to keep up?
Right. So we will be updating our runners. So look out for our updates on the ST Run official Facebook page, right? The website and the Sports Desk Twitter account. We will be posting updates from 9 o'clock on Saturday night, and then after that from 2:30 a.m. on Sunday morning.
Okay. So they need to stay tuned to these different
Yes,
platforms.
to these channels.
If I can just read off, if you don't mind me, the Twitter handle for that is the @ST Sports Desk.
Yes.
And the Facebook page is the Straits Times Run.
Yes.
Right. So stay tuned to those if you are a runner this weekend. And thanks, Yulin, for the info. And we will look forward to seeing you at the ST Run this weekend. And those are top stories of the day. Once again, I'm Kimberly. For more news and videos, do head on to our website, straitstimes.com. Thank you for watching The Big Story, and we will see you tomorrow.